Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big. It's election season, and we are interviewing all of the candidates for our county offices. Today, we're doing county executive, the big job in the county, and we have John Hamilton, who's a challenger, a Democrat, running for county executive. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So the obvious question is, why do you want this job?
I want this job for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons in Wicomico right now for my age group to be leaving this county.
Right.
And I want to be able to try to get in there and try to get some reasons for people to stay. Try to get, that age group from people graduating up into the 40s to actually want to stay here and hopefully draw people from other counties even. But right now we have a big problem because other counties have better jobs, other counties have better schools, so the main thing I want to do is be able to get in there and make Wicomico competitive again.
How would you go about doing that?
There's going to be three main things that I'm going to start on when I get in there, and that's education is number one, and then we're going to go with infrastructure, and the other thing is government reform. The education, we already have a good superintendent with Dr. Hanlon. I think the only thing she really needs now is a good young county executive that's recently been through the public school system that can help her and be willing to fund that program that she's been working on. Aside from that, I would really like to see us upgrade our standards for safety with education too, just because we have a gun culture today and
Right.
It's better to be prepared than not to be. There's always lots of things we can do with that, and of course bringing in the sheriff to help and be connected to it would be a bonus. The other thing with education I'm really big on is trying to get vocational studies back involved. We always have jobs here that could easily have people, take courses that would lead right to those. And even aside from that, there's plenty of people that don't need to go to college or don't want to. Always having vocational studies available for those people is crucial for a vibrant community.
The brain drain, which you talked about at the beginning, we talk about it here all the time. I feel like there's been some progress, but I don't know if that's true or not, if it just seems anecdotally like there has been progress. Are we doing better, at least in the city, to make a better place that young people want to stay?
Well, the city has actually done a great job with laying some groundwork, and the county is definitely something that should follow suit with that. There's always going to be more we can do, and we really need to be able to communicate with that age group too. Though we've made progress a little bit, it hasn't been enough that has really started to seep down into the community. I still talk to many people I've talked to, still consider moving away, and not just this age group either, but
Right.
But that is one we have to focus on because the youth is going to be the lifeblood of the community.
Right.
We need that for people to go into new jobs and everything. So we've started a little bit of progress in Salisbury. The county hasn't done much of anything yet. We need to follow that, and definitely both need to work, Salisbury and the county need to work together and try to make it as better as possible.
Now, you mentioned government accountability. That's a new one. I haven't heard anyone talk about that. I'm very interested in that as from what my job is. So tell me what you're thinking about with government accountability.
I am big on things like government transparency and communication, getting citizens involved, everything. I'd like to redo the website so it has better access to information, so people have just even an ongoing calendar so everybody knows when events are coming up. I've heard a lot of people have problems sometimes knowing when things are going to go on. They hear about them after the fact.
Yeah, it's all there. You just have to be a detective to find it.
Right, yeah. So have that better situated so people can go on there, easily find the information they need and be better informed. And that includes everything from, the budget to what plans we got going on for what project, or everything. And I would personally like to spearhead that and just, really show a good foot forward in being open and being honest and showing everybody what's going on, why we're making what decisions we're making, and so they can follow along with the thought process too, because the best thing, especially from what I found recently, the best input we get is from the citizens. So they have to know what's going on to be able to give that input.
Right. One of the things when Bob Culver first got elected, when he was running, economic development was the centerpiece of his campaign. Got in there, he tried to make some moves. Council wasn't very supportive, kind of blew up in a way. We reverted back to the same system that we've had for years. Maybe it's been okay. Maybe it's a great system. I'm not sure. But you want economic development. How would you go about it?
My first step is going to be working on these other outside things like education and infrastructure, because all those things give us a better ground that we can negotiate for better events, better businesses, and better people all to come to our community. So the first step is going to be, both aesthetically and functionally, giving a facelift to the community, getting all our infrastructure up to date and looking good. I want somebody, if they go through our county, to say,
Right.
hey, I want to live here,
Right.
know? So that's going to be the first step. And once we do that, then we'll have hopefully a better draw on businesses and stuff and be able to work with some directly in, meeting their goals to get here.
You were a county council candidate at one point. You're going to
Yes.
be county executive now. There's talk all the time whether we need the county executive system. It's been in for 12 years. Do you think a county executive is something that's needed by Wicomico County?
Well, it's still a new system, so I definitely think that with the right people in there, it's an effective system. But it also has the possibility of giving, someone more power when it's not going to be for the benefit of the community. So it has its pluses and minuses, but I think all in all, it can be more effective because you have someone that's able to bring everybody together. Whereas without someone leading,
Right.
It can all just break down to argument. So as long as you have the right person there, someone that's willing to work with other people and willing to lead and be open-minded to other ideas and stuff, not think that my idea is always going to be the best, I think we can be very effective and have that our form of government can be excellent for this area.
We do see tensions between the county executive and the county council. It hasn't been as bad lately. It seems like they're trying harder to get along. Early in the term, there were some eruptions. Do you sense that tension? Is it a problem?
There's definitely more tension than I thought there would be in politics in general.
Right.
So, there's always going to be a little bit of uneasiness no matter what's going on. Just because even, just one person in there is elected, they always feel like everybody's judging what they're doing and, that they need to make the right decision and everything. So there's always that underlying tension, which some people will thrive on, which is,
Right, that's true.
But
It stirs the drink.
right. But that, and then, just the way that some of our previous elected officials have been, not naming any names, but sometimes there's a contentiousness between, different posts and stuff. And to have a good functioning government, you need to be able to work with everyone. Especially if you're supposed to be that poster boy leader, you need to be the one that steps forward and puts a good foot forward for everybody and says, I'm willing to work with people, I'm willing to listen to new ideas, and I want to be that guy that's bringing people in to work together. If you're not doing that, you're never going to have everybody else on the same page. So that's one thing I want to do, is I want my administration, I want its hallmark to be communication and openness and inclusiveness. Obviously, I would have to be the one to lead the way in that, and I fully intend to. But to see that spread and, to get a good culture of respect in our community, that would be a great thing and a good first step to getting those younger people like we were talking about, bringing them in to that community. That's one thing I've talked to, everybody actually I talked to says we need more respect, just in talking to each other, just business dealings, whatever it may be, to just remember that we're all here trying to work together and, do better, and if we can, to work in the a path together that will work for everybody. Of course, that's never usually going to happen, but the most people we can at once working together for the best things.
I know as I get older, I develop more bad habits because you're an old man, you stop caring. Your competitors here are both in their mid to late 60s. The age disparity is quite a bit. Is it time for the county to be in younger hands?
Absolutely. We are in a technological revolution right now. The people that understand it the best are the ones that have grown up through it. That age group knows the importance of everything that's going on right now and how it connects in our personal lives, in business, everything. It's something that you can't look over today. And not that it's ignored by other candidates, but it's just not the same grasp as our younger candidates have. And getting them involved in politics now and getting our government lined up with actual futuristic expectations like they should be is going to be better for everybody in the community because it's going to be pushing everything ahead at a more progressive rate.
Right. Education's been a big focus lately. A lot of community business leaders came together this last budget cycle, said the county needs to spend more on education. Where are you on that?
100% support funding Dr. Hanlon's plan. Aside from
Universal
that,
pre-K,
yeah, universal pre-K,
some more money for teachers,
and
graduation rate,
and community college paid
Right.
for and everything. Yeah. Aside from that, I don't think that we need to go overboard with putting more money into it. I think there's already, we get about 145 million from the state alone. There's a lot of money that goes into it as it is. So it's not always necessarily the dollar symbol, but that's what you hear over and over and over again. Now, I absolutely do think that when I go through the budget, there's going to be extra money. And because just after a while, governments get bloated and stagnant.
right?
And I think ours is at that point. So when I find extra money there, that's one of the places I plan to divert it. So not that I ever would plan to raise taxes for it or anything. I do plan to put money towards education, but I more plan to get it from cutting fat in other areas.
You're a product of the local school system.
Yes.
Do you feel like you got a good education?
I do. I absolutely do. I feel like a lot of the education system is what you put into it also. You have to be somebody that wants to learn. Anybody can just sit there and ignore what's going on,
Right.
So you're always going to have outliers, good and bad. But at least my experience, I think there's a lot of good points to the public school system. And if we could grow those good points and maybe try to remove a few of the negatives here or there, it naturally will improve on its own a lot of times. But having somebody that's been through it recently compared to decades and decades
Yeah,
ago.
the old when I was a kid.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. When I used to go walk
Right.
through snow, right. I think that's crucial to having someone that can actually understand what needs to be done and support the Board of Education and the superintendent in getting it done.
One of the other big economic development things we talk about a lot lately is the airport. Any thoughts about what should happen out there at the airport?
Absolutely. The airport is one of the most important things we have going in the county. I am 100%
There's
going.
a lot of people who don't get that.
Yeah, it's very important, and we got to support it 100%. And I'm not exactly sure if the project that's going on right now. I think there's trying to
Runway
expand,
extension,
right?
yeah.
Expand a runway.
Yeah, and they're putting water
Yeah.
out there.
Right. So anything that continues that growing, I'm all for 100%. There's no reason that we cannot be a partner with that airport and make it, more of a jewel for the county than it already is.
Yeah, and on the heels of that, I meant to ask also about economic development. The scholarship program at Warwick got a lot of criticism because people didn't see that as an economic development tool. And I sort of saw it as a way, if you make the workforce smarter, that's going to grow your economy.
Absolutely. That's a big thing. I mean, like you just said, we have to have a good, educated, skilled workforce. I mean, if people want to make more money, that's how you do it. You get better education, you get better jobs, and when you have a job, you can go and get more training, to work better at that or whatever you're doing. I don't see why people would see that as a negative whatsoever.
Unfair question, but you're running against two people who have been in politics for a while. Usually someone who's a challenger has to offer kind of a wacky idea to get people's attentions. Do you have any wacky things that you want to try to achieve as county executive? I guess an example would be if I was going to be elected, I would probably do away with the liquor board. I mean,
Right.
Which no one supports that except for me. I mean, that's something.
Right.
Anything that you see that you would like to do?
Not wacky wise. I guess the probably the weirdest thing is just that I'm younger than them. Aside from that, one thing I do want to try to get done is getting rid of the revenue cap. I would like.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'd like to work with the citizens and probably have it transferred to a tax cap. I know my opponents, one of them doesn't want to touch it at all, and the other wants to do more studies on it. I personally would like to, have more of an educational conversation with the citizens over the first year or so, and then try to do a referendum possibly on getting it to a tax cap. Because that would eliminate the issues that we have with it, any unforeseen problems that come up from it, and it also keeps the protection for the taxpayer. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, there's a theory we've just been lucky so far.
Right, exactly. There is definitely a couple situations that I've heard brought up that it could put us in a very, bad way.
So you get elected, you're the county executive. What's that first big thing that you want to achieve and you'll be able to say, all right, I've made a difference, I've done something special here?
My first thing right off the get-go obviously the first few months and stuff, I'm going to be trying to get the people around me, the best people I can. After I do that, first thing I want to do on the ground is actually start some of this infrastructure work. We have flooding issues here, septic failings or septic and wells that fail in communities that need sewer and everything, standard sewer and water. Getting some of those infrastructure things running right off the bat, that's something that I'd be able to point to and say, hey, we got this done. We're moving on to the next thing. Let's keep showing what we can get done together as we go forward.
Yeah, the council members say the flooding complaints are the biggest phone calls that they get.
Absolutely. I hear people all the time talking about it. And we're capable of redirecting rivers. You can't tell me that we can't just assign a crew to it and fix it. Every single flooding issue there is. Fix it, move to the next one.
Right. Same thing with the idea of the sewer systems, a lot of them failing in different neighborhoods. A little bit of a conflict about whether the county could get in the sewer business or it has to be the city. Have you thought about that?
I have. I think it would probably end up being both. We'd probably start by expanding what's already there, and then we would look into possibly doing an actual county system. It would, obviously there would have to be a little bit of study as to the, the population of failures, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not sure the exact word I'm looking
Right.
for, but once we knew the exact, mapped out of how it was, then we would have a better idea of whether we could use existing systems or build a new one. But more than likely, from the way I've talked to people, it's probably going to end up being both because I've heard a lot of issues from it.
Right.
And even if, with new expansion, I would prefer it to all be with sewer and, water instead of having any wells and septic because they apparently don't last for as long as we'd like them to in this area. So we might as well steer clear of them as much as possible.
Just a few weeks until Election Day. How can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you, learn more? How can they reach you?
I give everybody I talk to my cell phone number. It's 410-490-7538. I tell them if you want to call me anytime I'm running or if I'm elected, just give me a call and you'll get a hold of me. We can talk about anything you want to. If you've got an issue, let me know.
He's John Hamilton. He's running for county executive, the big job, and we're just thrilled that he was here today. Thanks for being here, John.
Yep, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Joining me now in the studio is Jack Heath, president of the Salisbury City Council. Welcome, Jack.
Welcome. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it very much.
Now, you got a good gig. You're the president of the Salisbury City Council.
Yeah.
Lots of good things going on in Salisbury. Why would you want to run for county executive?
Well, I think that I'm excited about the potential for the county. And I think that if we work together, as we have in the city, we can bring that enthusiasm and that sense of joy to the county. And that's why I ran.
County executive is one of those jobs. We're 12 years in now, so you'd think we'd have it all figured out, but we don't. The first guy that had it, he was a good man, good county executive, but he seemed more like an ambassador for the county. You know, he went around and cut the ribbons and was the figurehead of the county. The executive we have now seems more at the table and more directly involved in a lot of issues, like truly running the county. What kind of county executive, and it's an office you can define, you can do it however you want. What kind of county executive would you be?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think that certainly the county exec needs to be out and needs to be the face of the county. One of the most important things is to visit and place yourself where the rest of the towns and the municipalities can see you and talk to you. Also, it's very critical for the county executive to work with the county council, because there are two parts of the government. And I think that we have to realize that that's the way it operates. There's a legislative branch and the executive branch. And I think the executive branch is comprised of what I just described. And I think that we need to really communicate a lot better with the county council. And my plan is to work with them.
Why are there tensions right now between the county council and the county executive? They're all in the same party.
I don't know what it is. I've been to a lot of county council meetings, and I think that there's still that search for, as you alluded to, what should the relationship be? And I think that from what I've been through in the last 4 years, I think that it's clear that there needs to be severe communication between the two groups. And for some reason, it just doesn't happen. There are a lot of surprises that happen, and I think that that's because there isn't enough dialogue.
Right, and because of all that, I watch you and the mayor closely. And he'll be on a run with all these great ideas and things he wants to do, and you sort of see the momentum going, but then you'll insert yourself as the check on that thing, and like, no, this needs more discussion, or no, we need to talk about this more. And he'll kind of flinch a little bit, but then he realizes, okay, Jack's doing his job. like he figures that out.
Yeah.
But I don't always see that same sort of collaborative effort in the county.
No, I think that the relationship for instance, between the county executive and the county council president is a unique opportunity. I think that, as it is in the city, there are no surprises for Jake or I. We meet once a week. We talk about things that are going to come up, and sometimes I agree, and sometimes I say, I'm not sure that we want to do it that way. And that works. And he takes it for what it's worth. I listen to him, and then we bring it to the council, and we decide in work session. I think that's the other key too. The other key is the county exec needs to be involved in the work sessions, especially when it comes to around budget time. Because the last thing that you want is a surprise hitting you. And I think that that's happened in the past.
Right. They've had some issues with budget. This year was a kind of a cleaner budget. They seem to be communicating, but the year before they really didn't communicate on the budget, and there was a big blow up at the end.
Yeah. And that shouldn't happen.
The other area of tension, not to hit on tensions too hard, but I sense constantly a tension between the city and the county. It's endemic. It goes back a century.
Yeah.
Where people in the county don't seem to understand the city and vice versa. You're walking both sides of that. Talk to me about that.
Well, I don't understand it. We're the county seat. We're the economic hub of the county. We have 100,000 people in the city every day. We don't have 100,000 people in the city, so they're coming from someplace.
Right.
And yes, granted, there's some coming from Delaware. There's some maybe coming from East and Talbot County. Some coming from Worcester. But really, we're the primary employer. If you look at the businesses and the hospital and Purdue, and so I don't understand why, if I'm county executive, I'm going to laud everything that's being done, because it's all positive, and positive news is very rare these days. And I think that the county should share in that. We are one. We're a community, And I said it before publicly, and I'll say it again. When I fought fires for the Fruitland Fire Company, I didn't know whether it was county, city.
Right.
It didn't matter to me. When I deliver Meals on Wheels, I deliver in the county. So I don't see it as city and county. I see it as community. And that's one of the strengths that we have here, is our community.
You played an important role in the fire services agreement. Again, a 50-year-old issue that no one could solve. And you helped solve that. You want to talk about that?
Well, I'm not sure we solved it or we just got something in place through negotiation,
Right.
and that's the way it should be done. But it should never got to the place and the antagonism that happened as a result of that. But I think we have an agreement in place. The people who were served by the city will remain served by the city. The other volunteer fire departments are going to get their funding as they always have, and should. And we'll go on and see what happens. We have an agreement for several years now, and when that's up, we'll see what happens.
In the last year or so, a lot of business leaders, community leaders have come together to talk about education.
Yeah.
Concerned that the county doesn't fund education in all the ways that it could.
Yeah.
I know you have some strong opinions about that. Where are you on our funding situation with our county education?
Well, to be honest, I think funding at maintenance of effort is an embarrassment, personally. I might be a little prejudiced because I was a teacher way back when, and my two daughters are teachers. But I think that if you look at it, education is the key driver for economic development and jobs. And when people move into the area or are looking to move into the area, the first question they ask the realtors is, how's the school system? And we need to be able to say to them, it's a good school system and it's supported by the county. And I'm not sure we can do that right now. So yes, I'm a very strong supporter of it. And when you really look at the way that it's funded right now, the state of Maryland, and especially the number of counties that are at the other side of the bridge, are helping support our school system.
Yeah.
How long are they going to be willing to do that? And what's our plan? We need to look ahead. We need to be proactive. And I think that's one of the things that I bring to the table.
Is there a role for the county executive in dealing with the school board?
Well, I think there's a communication role to say what the expectations are, to hold them accountable for what they say. For the first time in years, we have a strategic plan for education.
Isn't it amazing?
It's
I
kind
always
of
thought we had one, but I just missed it.
well, in business, all businesses have
Yeah.
strategic plans. They have to. And I think for the first time, someone has laid out with metrics, with ways of saying, look, are we successful or are we not successful? That's a tremendous advantage. And I think when someone's willing to put their name on a plan that has specific goals in mind and metrics in order to measure them, I think we're in good shape. So I think if we ever had the opportunity to make this work, now's the time.
You're talking about Dr. Hanlon, and the centerpiece to her latest initiative is the universal pre-K,
Yeah.
which I saw people being opposed to at first, calling it daycare and things like that, and then seeing politicians sort of evolve in this so that they got it.
Yeah, I think there's two aspects of it. The first aspect is the data that's been presented that shows that if by the third grade you're not reading at third grade level, your chance to be successful and graduate is reduced. And the second part of that is the social skills that the kids have, that the kids need.
Right.
If you can get them together to learn to play together, work together, then it becomes easier so that then you may have less issues once they get into the regular elementary school.
Right.
So I think that's the main thrust of the program. But certainly getting them to read at their grade level is very important.
The county executive has some jewels at his disposal to protect and to grow. I would say the Henry Parker Park and our Parks and Rec Department, tourism is excellent. The Shorebird Stadium, the Civic Center, the airport.
Yeah.
Focus on all these things right now. Which one are you more interested in? What would you like to see happen with one of these jewels?
Well, I think the airport is extremely important for sure. But all the things you mentioned, they're all quality of life things.
Very much.
You know, people are looking for a quality of life. That's the bottom line. And that includes public safety, that includes recreation in parks, that includes healthcare, that includes education. So I think that when you ask me which one, I think that they're all very, very important. But I think that, and that leads me into one of my next important things, and that's the development of a strategic plan. And that strategic plan should not be my plan. It should be the county's plan. It should be, we should get input from all the towns and municipalities, from leadership, and say, look, what are our priorities? Where do we want to go? What do we want to be? And that way, we're another way of being proactive.
Right. One of the things is the Civic Center, and the current county executive did something that I never thought could get done, was to get alcohol sales available there to raise up some of the revenues, and so it could be reinvested in the Civic Center. What are you have some ideas for the Civic Center like that?
Well, I was very excited when I heard that we're going to get a hockey team here.
Right.
I think we need to get a professional team if we can. That was one of the things. That was one of the things that helped get the liquor
Right.
in there, because no team would come if we couldn't. They couldn't have liquor. So I think that that's one of the things, and I think that there's a lot of other opportunities. We are starting to get the reputation in the city and the community as a destination point, no longer as a pass-through point.
Right.
And whatever we can do to enhance that destination idea, we should do.
Same thing with the airport. I try to explain to people why the airport's important, and they don't understand.
Well, it opens up. I mean, we're the second largest airport in Maryland, but we still have restrictions based on runways, et cetera. And when you're talking about economic development and job growth, there are some companies that could use access to more services than we have currently. Maintenance is another area that we could grow, but that comes with an investment strategy. And again, it's an investment. It's a strategy. It's got to be planned out so that we know that we can do the things that we say we can do.
We're in a time of pretty good economy right now, especially compared to when Rick Pollitt was the county executive throughout the recession. There's a lot of lessons from the recession that we're learning, and we're just recovering. Are we taking advantage of the great economic situation that we're in right now as a county?
I think we are, but I think that we need to start being a little bit more realistic. And what I mean by that is, your surplus is a safety net. It's got to carry you through bad times, and it's an amount of money that is definable. There is at least in my experience as a business guy, there's a point you get to where if you just keep building the bank account without reinvesting in the structure,
Right.
in this case, the county, if you're not reinvesting that money to get a return on that investment, which has to be a multiplier of what you invest, we're missing the boat. I'm certainly, as a county taxpayer, I'm not just paying taxes for it to go into a bank account and grow. I want to see what's done with my tax dollars, and I want to see a return on investment in those tax dollars. And I think most people, when I go around and I'm going door to door, I hear, what are we doing? Where are we investing, or why are we not investing in some things that we can get a return on that investment?
Yeah, I hear that too, because we've got a fairly strong reserve now. We've got a rainy day fund. And we do that, I think, because the Wall Street bankers like us to have that money available, and we're able to borrow money at less interest rates. That's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
But I especially hear it all the time, like, okay, the school board, the county number and the school board number is $5 million. We've got that in the bank. Give them the $5 million. I hear that all the time.
Yeah, well, it's, and I totally understand
Yeah.
that to get the bond rating, you have to be at a certain level, but they don't give you any more when you have excessive
Right.
over that number. And we have a good bond rating now, but we're still growing surplus. So it really doesn't make sense to me. I think reinvestment is something that we have to really seriously look at.
issue that's been talked about in the last year, surprisingly, our 18-year-old revenue cap. People saying that we should revisit that might be hampering the county. Even the county executive, you would think would be completely opposed. He's been listening to the discussion on this. What are your thoughts on this revenue cap?
Well, in good times, there's no discussion because we're doing well.
Right.
And when the revenue cap, that's another interesting thing, by the way. When I've gone around door to door, most people didn't think it was a revenue cap. Most
think it's
people
a
thought it
tax
was a
cap.
tax rate cap.
Right. Yeah.
So what they voted for isn't really what they voted for
Right.
in their heads. But having said that, during good times, it works fine. It's those times what you were referring to in 2008 when you really need to watch what you're doing.
Right.
And we had all those layoffs and everything else. So it works in good times, but we go through how many cycles have we been through in our lifetimes?
Right.
I've been through more than you, but
Right.
it happens.
And it feels like we've just been lucky that we haven't had to confront the revenue cap like we would have.
Yeah. But I think we need to be open to something different. I think that people would support a tax rate cap because then it's really in their mind, well, I know my taxes can't go up more than this. But I'm not saying, and people have tried to turn my words, that I want tax increases. If you look at my record in the city is not, when they talk about budget amendments and those kinds of things, if you watch
Yes.
any of the council meetings, it's rough for them to get them by because I just don't, unless it's public safety, different issue. Unless it's a public safety issue, I'm not big on budget amendments.
Yeah, the latest budget, the mayor had a nifty plan where where rentals are going to be taxed different than homeowners and all this stuff. And he presented it, and everyone was nodding and smiling. And then you were like, "Wait a minute, no, no, this is not the way. We need to talk about this more."
Yeah. And that's just one of the examples where, I've been through a lot in my lifetime, and I think that the mayor is young and exuberant, and thank God he is. But I think that we complement each other a little bit, and he listens to me, and I listen to him, and I get excited about some of the things he's talking about. But I think that when it comes to specialty taxes and those kinds of things, I think we have to be very, very careful. And hopefully the investment that we're making now, I can see in my mind in 4 or 5 years some real payback that's going to start to come.
If I vote for you, you get elected, what kind of county am I going to have?
You're going to have a county that focuses on quality of life. You're going to have a county that people want to come in and work in. You're going to have a top-notch education system, and you're going to have a business-friendly place to come and start your business.
You're out and about, you're everywhere, it's easy to run into you, but how can people get a hold of you and find out more about you?
Well, I have a webpage, Jack Heath, Heath for Wicomico, and I have a Facebook page, Jack Heath, and if you go on there, you'll get my whole history, how to contact me, how to donate, etc.
He's Jack Heath. He's the president of the Salisbury City Council. He wants to move up and be county executive of Wicomico County. He's running in this election. Jack, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. In the studio now, we have the incumbent, Bob Culver, our county executive. The big man is in the house. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
So you're running for re-election, and I have to say, I think you've had a good first term.
We feel very successful. We've done a lot of good things, I feel, for the county. So, yeah, we're on a positive note.
You tried more stuff than I thought you would have. I didn't know you had, I'm serious, I didn't know you had this well of ideas that you did, and that you were willing to try stuff like this Civic Center alcohol thing, and to bring a hockey team in, and the stuff you've done with the Henry Parker Park. You've done a lot.
Well, that's how you get things done. I know that's upset some people by making things happen, but people aren't really always accustomed to change, but we feel that that's the best way. And who knows better until you get out there with the idea and try it.
Right.
So that's how I've made my living all my life.
Pirates Wharf was just in the news again this week. When you
Yeah.
first proposed that, I was like, that's never going to happen. Because I used to live right there, and I would have been the first one there to protest it. I don't live there anymore, so I can't protest it. But I was like, that's never going to work. But you've pushed on it, and you've kept at it, and people are coming around to the idea.
Well, we just got an $820,000 federal matching grant. We've got the money already aside for the county money that we put aside for future parks, that type of thing. So that's $1.5 million that we will have going towards Pirates Wharf with low impact trails, walking paths, that type of thing. And so we've commissioned a study to be done now. In order to get federal money, you've got to have a professional study done. They won't just take Bob Culver's idea and say, yeah, let's do
Right.
that. But with that being done, we're well on the way to making this a major park.
Right. And this would be County Park down Whitehaven Road.
B County Park on Whitehaven Road,
Right.
yes. We've owned it for over 20 years now, and all we've ever done is lease the property to a farmer and hunting rights.
Now, I feel like you're a different guy than you were when you got elected. Like you've come around, you understand things better. You're maybe a little bit more thoughtful about things. Have you changed as a politician, as a leader, as a person?
Yes, I have. Coming from where I did, even on 4 years of council, I still made my living as an entrepreneur and doing what I did as a businessman. Now I've come to understand that in my position is where I am as a county executive, I'm not only the leader, but I have to explain my thoughts more thoroughly, more clearly to people what we want to do and or what my ideals are and how we're going to get that, to that range.
Where are the voices in your ear? Who do you listen to that help influence how you're thinking?
Pretty much anybody that has a point to come up and say, I really feel like we need to do this. We've gotten involved now in our recycling. We're at 56% recycling in Wycomico County. When we lost the SU position and we lost the place in Fruitland, we knew we needed some other things. And somebody just offhandedly said, well, I wish it was right in my subdivision. That way I wouldn't have to drive so far. We now have 2 subdivisions that actually have recycling within the subdivision. We don't advertise that because the people in the subdivision know it, but we don't want people coming from all over town, causing traffic problems within these subdivisions. But that's worked out very well. We're collecting 40 tons out of 1 already in recycling.
And one area that I've seen where you've learned, I remember you were slightly critical of your predecessor about the bond market and the attention on Wall Street. But now you've been up there, and I think you understand how that process works. And you almost sound like him when you talk about it.
It's a frustrating market, I can tell you. We've done everything right, and again, to give Rick credit before me, I think he did, and he was suffering more from a downturn than I have been.
Yeah, coming right out of that recession.
We've come back a little bit now. Do I think we're out of that? No, I don't. But you keep going for a higher rating, and by getting that rating, I get a lower interest rate on my bonds, that type of thing. So we've established a policy pretty much under my term that we're only borrowing what we pay off. We want to get it down to a level type of funding. Our long-term debt is starting to shrink. We're doing everything for 15 years now. So, we've worked ourselves into a very good position, and they've all recognized that. So that's good, And I do. If I ever busted on Rick before on the bond market, then I'm sorry, Rick, because it's a tough market up there. It really is.
You have evolved. So early in your term, I have to say, you were really hard on the school board. You said some really mean things, perhaps, in those first weeks. Even actually, between November and January, you said some pretty mean things about the school board. I know that's going to come up as part of the election cycle because people are going to bring that up. You said some things that I couldn't even imagine you saying today. You called them deceitful. There was a problem with some transparency. They weren't nice to you. You weren't going to be perhaps nice to them, but that seems to have changed.
Well, I respect Dr. Hanlon very much.
It was a previous superintendent.
It was a previous superintendent. And, once respect is amongst each other, then things go a little bit better. I did not receive that respect being the leader of the county from the previous superintendent, and subsequently things just went downhill from there. But do I believe in transparency? Certainly, I believe in transparency, and I still have some questions even under this school board administration on how I'd like to see things done. I'd like to lay it all out there. But when it comes
they were not transparent about their office move. I was a victim of that. I kept asking as a reporter, oh, there's no news here, and then they moved the office.
And they moved the office at $30,000 a month.
And you were not in the loop on that at all.
We were not in the loop.
Yeah.
But then again, some other things have happened that we've not been on the loop too, and that I really feel like we should be. But those things are evolving. It's a school board history. It's how they've always worked. I like an open relationship with the school board, and I'm very honest, I'm very open. You ask me a question, I'll tell you the truth, and I tell Dr. Hanlon this, or Rick Briggs, or any of them, just where I stand on something.
Now, the Bennett Fields issue, the athletic fields, the finishing of the tearing down of Bennett Middle, the completion,
Yeah.
phase 3 of that project.
Sure.
You were critical of that, tried to change it a little bit. They talked you out of it, essentially.
Yeah, and the council sort of, went against me on that, and that's fine. What I had wanted to do was actually take a little bit more time and look at Bennett Jr. before it was just destroyed.
Right.
And I lost the vote. So there was
Right.
no sense in, worrying about what happened yesterday. I've got to go on till tomorrow. So.
And their attitude was you came in as after the decision has been made, the process was too far along.
Well, first of all, I still think the decision to do 2 schools at once was a wrong thing to do. You should have never,
Right.
locked up that kind of money for 2 schools at a time. But
This is the construction of Bennett Middle followed by the,
Right.
or vice versa.
But that
with
being done,
Sierra.
it was done before my term and everything, and I tried to slow it down a little bit and was unable to do so. So,
As a member of the council.
as a member of council, and also as a member, when I first came in, if you'll remember, I tried to save Bennett Jr. so
Right.
we could look at that for future office space, that
Right.
type of thing, and purchase land behind it or something. But that being said, I lost the vote, and I'm a realist. When you lose the vote, you got to go on, do something else, and so from that point on, I changed, and I can't say I supported 100%, but I supported it to enough to let's get it done.
Right.
And then I went on with Bennett Middle. I've done the completion of Bennett Middle. I've done the completion of West Salisbury, and now I have Beaver Run in the queue, so to speak.
Right, I want to talk about Beaver Run. But then the next sort of, not standoff, but conflict perhaps, came on West Salisbury, which just ironically opened last Thursday. Big, beautiful ceremony. And people are calling me, Bob, I have to ask you this. You weren't there at the opening, and people want to know why. And I was like, well, wait, if your name's on the plaque in the hallway, you got to be at the opening. They're like, he wasn't there.
Well, let me tell you, I had people ask me why. The day before the opening, that afternoon, we had a 30-year employee have a stroke. I immediately went over to where he worked to find out how he was doing. It was kind of touch and go. I called the Board of Education and said I may not be able to make it. To me, rather than get up and give a 3-minute speech with a lot of politicians and people.
And your deputy was there.
And my deputy was there. Wayne did an excellent job, and Weston was there. I went to be with the employee, and that's where I cared about more. I cared about my employees, and I wanted them to know that I supported them. So if something had happened to him overnight when he went into the hospital, I would have been there. And that's why I said I couldn't go because of the timing in the morning. So as it turned out, he's doing very well, and things are great. But if I had to do it again, I'll do it again tomorrow.
Well, maybe it's a people or people thing, but there's the optics of it. Bob didn't get his way on West Salisbury, so he doesn't show up for the opening.
No, I'm the one that pushed it. After I lost the vote again on trying to remodel that,
Right.
I pushed it. I wasn't really in favor of Beaver Run. I went out there and I met with Dr. Hanlon and several of the other people, and there was 2 or 3 reasons that convinced me that Beaver Run was due for an
Wait,
overhaul.
let me set that up. Beaver Run is on Old Ocean City Road.
Yes.
It's a 1950s building. It's built all wrong. It was built as if we were going to have nuclear attacks, so it's a bunch of little individual buildings that people can survive in. Makes no sense now as an elementary school. Tremendous problems, and we're going to rebuild it.
Sure. Yes, and
And the question is, how much are we going to spend?
and that is a question. Yep, we've got to go before council and everything else. But we've already spent $800,000 doing studies and plans, and they're asking for $9 million this year. Don't know that that's going to happen because we already have the sheriff's office on
Right.
the plans to be done.
Right.
But in doing so, I went there and I noticed, they're having trouble with flooding when high tide came up on Beaver or Old Ocean
Right.
City Road.
It's built in a hole.
It's built in a hole, and we had to get over that hurdle. And then second of all, in this day and time, they're all open corridors. So if we're going to, say we need to have safe schools, then this would be one of the first ones, which was done just about like
Right.
Wycomico Senior High School was done, with the open breezeways and everything. These need to be closed in and be a protected school. And so that's why I decided that we should go ahead and go with it. Not because I wanted to spend another $28–30 million. That wasn't the question at all. It's just because now's the time. And I'm a big one on preaching safety. When I put $750,000 extra in the Board of Education's budget, it was for safety, as what I had thought it would be best for, and that's a big thing that Hogan has asked for, trying to harden these schools, so to speak. So,
Right, and I thought that was a great gesture. It ended up not working because the state had their plan, and there's a matter of what how that we could use the money. There's all kinds of rules. But yeah, you wanted to harden the schools because there's concerns about out in the East schools, and add some money, and it ended up working out okay.
Well,
But you also,
they only got 162,000 from the state.
as all
I
got,
had 750,000 from
and they
me.
ended up using 500 for maintenance of effort.
Right.
But it was one of those things where you, rather than try to, really control where every dollar was going to go, you said, "Here's the money. This is what I'd like you to do with it."
This was my thought. Now,
Right.
We had this much extra leftovers. I won't say leftover. We never had it left over, but within our figuring and what we anticipated coming in, this was available.
But I would argue in your first year, you never would have done that.
You're probably right. You're very correct on that.
Yeah. Civic Center, great progress there. My golly,
It's-
not that it's been neglected for a long time, but there's so much potential there, and it seems like you're seeing what some of the potential could be.
This is the best year in the history of the Civic Center. We've made more money this year. We've booked over 1,000 events. So if you just kind of roughly do that in your head, that's over 3 different events a day. From that could be anything from Happy Timers, which come back on a regular, to you and I having a meeting over there, or we met with the State Highway Administration over there last week. So it's been great to see it grow as much as it has. Now we're sitting down now discussing what to do with the Midway Room. The Midway Room is great for banquets, for dinner, and for Judge Barkley's retirement the other night.
Which I missed.
Oh, did you?
No one told me about it.
Oh, really? Well, it was wonderful. It really was, and she was so taken by it. I was just very heartfelt to be there.
That's the kind of stuff my paper has to be at.
I don't know what to tell you there. So,
Anyway, go ahead.
But
Sorry.
anyhow, so that was very good. So, but that room it has air conditioning system that would have probably be best for like playing volleyball in there,
Right.
and not so much so for speaking over microphones and.
Right, when it comes on, your hair starts blowing.
It does,
Yes.
and we've got to work on that. And do we keep the concrete floor, or do we come back and do some type of carpet and try to make it like a dinner theater, a conference room? That's what we're working on now. So we're trying to get some ideas together for that.
And your guy Steve Miller, the Parks and Rec director, is doing a really good job.
He's doing all my department heads are doing a very good job. I can you call either one of them off, and I can tell you things that they've done, and we do it quietly, and that's the way I work. We're not trying to get out every day and brag what we've done, because we all work for the citizens, and by doing that, we're doing what they expect us to do. If they've got to try to figure out what we're doing, then we're doing it wrong.
Now, no one could get alcohol sold out there for years. There are all kinds of reasons why. You did it like in an afternoon, basically.
Well,
It seemed like.
I had a good attorney, and I had help in the state Senate to get it through, and then the delegates voted for it, and Governor Hogan signed for it. So
Has there been a backlash?
no, never. I've never heard one bad thing yet that somebody has told me. I do know now the first weekend we were there, someone. In sitting in our new seats, we're not able to put the cup in right, and it spilled on somebody a little bit. But that wasn't due to any over drinking. It wasn't due to any problem other than it happens sometimes.
And the new seats are great too.
The new seats have turned out people like theirs very much, and we put the handrails on the steps. As you remember, going up the steps were rather steep, and kind of give you vertigo almost.
Right.
But we put handrails in there. I was thinking about you when I did that. So,
I do suffer from vertigo quite a bit.
well, just
but usually it's just at Friday happy hour.
so anyhow.
Another area where I didn't think you would have vision, I'm sorry, was the airport.
You're really busting on me here,
Well,
but
because people don't always get it, and the airport is a complicated thing. It's part of the economic matrix in who we are.
Sure.
I mean, in order to be a successful county, you have to have the rules are simple. You have to have an airport, and you have to have a research university, you have to have a community college system, you have to have a hospital. And we have all those things, which really count for us, compared to other counties. But you are really paying a lot of attention to what the possibility is with the airport.
well, like you say, you need that to have a successful town. We're very fortunate to have a full-fledged airport in Wycomico County, as small as we are, with 100,000 people. But we are the second largest airport in the state of Maryland, which is kind of hard to believe, and people kind of snicker at that. But we have full 24/7 access to the airport, towers and everything, and the instrument landing. We've got all that. So, and we're extending the runway now to cover larger planes in the future. But when I came in, we sat down, we had some conversations on it, and I listened for almost a year before I made any real changes. I took what was the airport commission at the time, and made it underneath the executive's office.
And people were furious. Power grab. How dare he? He doesn't know anything about the airport.
No, but I hired the right people that do, and that's what's important as any leader. You got to hire the right people that do. And we have a council person in John Hall who had a lot of love for the airport, probably due to his flying around for so long
Right.
with the travel agencies, and he's been a great catalyst for that. But that being said, we went to make it an enterprise zone. You know, people say, well, you can't get all that as enterprise zone. I got the entire 1,000 acres as an enterprise zone. So that will help any new business wanting to start out on that side of town or that close to an airport, gives them the advantage that they can go out there and get all kinds of tax advantages from the state. So that's been good. So it was a no-brainer. We needed water out there because with the new fire regulations, you can't build a hangar, you know, over 10,000 square feet without having a central fire sprinkler system. And by having that, now we can build the hangars 30, 40,000 square feet. We're looking at building a 38,000 square foot hangar very soon.
The big issues lately have been flooding in the county. Everyone's going crazy about that. We had a county council candidate in here who talked about perhaps the county needs to go into the sewer business for failing septic places, sewer sites. Where are you on this idea of a municipality sewer?
Well, I have asked Jake Day, and we've sat down, Mayor Day and I have sat down before, and we've asked for urban service. We would love to start an urban service agreement. The city is the one that discontinued that earlier on because they wanted to annex everything.
Right.
We have an area off Old Ocean City Road, Chesapeake Heights, where many of the systems have already failed. What I hope to do is to bring that in to the city water system and sewer system, but under doing so, it would be 10, maybe 15 years before they would be taken into the city.
Right.
Give these people time, and younger couples are, you know, they're homes that people would love to start off in and build up their equity, that type of thing. So that's what I hope to do. I mean, you just can't slap, you know, those kind of taxes. Actually, the city tax is higher than the county tax now, so
Right.
it's just hard to double somebody's taxes. But if we can do that and bring them into it and do an urban service agreement until the 10 to 15 years is up, then I'm all for that.
Yeah, you know, growing up here, I never understood how the people in the Tony Tank area were able to have sewer and water. I guess they don't have water; they have sewer, but they never had to pay city taxes. And the city decided we're not going to do that anymore. From now on, if you want to use our sewer plant, you're going to have to live in our city. Do you understand that point of view?
I do to a certain extent, but you know, things have changed a lot in the last couple of years since the O'Malley administration, and things have changed as far as the Maryland Department of Planning. So what we're trying to do now is to make it equitable for both county citizens and city citizens. Not everybody wants to live in the city, and we've got to take that into consideration too. So there may be if the city doesn't want to expand or they don't feel like they can, then I'm seriously looking at package systems, which would take in
Right.
certain areas. So, as far as the drainage problem,
Right. Okay. Yes.
okay, first you got to realize we're at zero sea level.
It's
Let's
dark.
work with that first.
My house was 8 feet above the river, and I lived a mile from the river.
Right, and mine's even less. But you know, the point is that you know, being where we are and we have water on the Nanticoke, water on the Wicomico side, it can wash right across the peninsula with no problem. But ditches do need to get cleaned, and we've got to be a little bit firmer on some of the subdivisions. They need to get in and clean their ditches, that was their responsibility. But
It's not the county's job to go out there and make everything right.
if we do, we've got to charge. And I say it because if I do one for Kilburn, I've got to go do one for Centennial, vice
Yeah.
versa. So that's how it works.
Do you enjoy your job?
Very much so. I love getting up in the morning. I was in this morning at 10 minutes to 6 because I had ideas I woke up with last night, and I wanted to get them on paper in the office to go with. But I enjoy it. It's challenging. I enjoy the people. I won't say it's not frustrating, and some days go better than others, but it's very rewarding for people to come up to you and say, you're doing a great job. We appreciate what you're doing. We have not raised taxes in 4 years. We've cut fees out with the impact fee. The inventory tax is gone. So that's rewarding when people come up and they recognize what you're doing. And so,
What big thing do you want to accomplish in your next term if you're reelected?
what I would like to do in my next term is going to be to finish off the airport, make sure that I've got all that straight. I would love to have, I won't say a second carrier in here, but I'd love to have somebody who could go to BWI. So we're going to work on that. But I would also like to encourage as many businesses by the education part. I want to be able to make sure that the education infrastructure is in place before we start doing a lot more. You know, I'm all for the Imagine 2022 program, but at the same time, we've got to make sure that we are, we have the schools, we have the buildings. Right now, we don't even have enough school buildings, and then we're talking about putting them in, you know, modular buildings. Is that what we want to do? You know, and that's a conversation we need to have with the school board. So.
How can people reach you if they want to ask you more questions?
Well, they seem to be able to reach me a lot when they got a problem. But anyhow, my office number is 410-548-4801, and my cell phone is listed on the website. Just go to wycomicocounty.org.
He's Bob Culver. He's our county executive. It's been 4 years already. It's hard to believe he wants another term, and we're thrilled that he was here today. Thanks for being here, Bob.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper, special election edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.